Hi folks, and welcome back to another Travels of Red Rover. I'm Sean.
And I'm Corrine.
And where are we today?
Well, we are in southern Arizona near Flagstaff at the Wupatki National Monument.
Actually, we're in northern Arizona, dear.
Is it northern?
Yeah, we're still in northern Arizona.
Okay, we're in northern Arizona near Flagstaff.
And we're off doing some adventuring for the next couple of weeks, and this is our first stop.
Yeah, so we are going to scope out a few places this afternoon, but our plan is to maybe do a sunrise here. We've been to this monument once before, and we'll put a link to that in the description below. We did a sunset that time, so we're going to try sunrise and see if we get something a little different.
And we're keeping our fingers crossed that we're going to get something that's really nice and some good photographs to go with it.
We're going to have a short quarter-mile trail, and from the parking lot, we can go out to the left to some Box Canyon ruins, and then we'll take the trail up to the right to Lomaki ruin. This is part of the Box Canyon ruins, and you can see that it has stone walls made of sandstone and limestone. They created a mud to mortar together the stones, and typically the roof would have been made with timbers and branches with mud over top. The building here was probably built around the 1100s, now over 800 or 900 years old, and other than being stabilized by the National Park Service, it's pretty much its original condition. This area here is a small box canyon. It's believed that the canyons were more prone to having moisture, and they could do more farming of crops in this area. They would do some little check dams to help control the moisture through the area, and they farmed crops like squash and other crops that would be useful to them. This is a second ruin in the Box Canyon ruins, and the buildings are up on the cliffs of Box Canyon. As I mentioned earlier, they probably farmed the land down in the flat area of the canyon where the water would flow through. And the advantage of letting the water flow through over their crops would be it would also bring new silt that would help to add nutrients to their soil. What we've seen of the soil here up on the edges of the canyon is mostly volcanic soil.
So I want to give you a little photo tip, and we might call this a little travel photo tip. Now, right now, the sun is way over behind Corrine, who's filming me right now, and is actually at a pretty low angle. So when you're taking pictures of these beautiful ancient structures, you're much better to be on the side that's lit. So instead of going to the east side of the building, which will be heavily in shadow with the sun trying to overexpose all of the sky for you, try to take your photos with the sun at your back and shoot towards the well-lit part of the structure. Now you can use a little bit of shadow as part of your composition. That's fine. That actually could look really good. But generally speaking, the lit building will look a lot more interesting in your shots to show your friends and family.
So here you can see that we're looking at a more shadowed wall. This one's on the north side of the structure, and then over to the right along this side, that's the west side. So as the sun's getting lower in the sky, closer to sunset, we get better light on this. Probably there's no time of day here at this time of year where the north side would be very well lit, unless you're in a very cloudy day. This wall shows a few small openings that would have been windows to ventilate. A lot of the buildings would have had large openings in the roof to vent smoke from fires that were burning inside the building.
Here I am coming out a door in the building. You can still enter these buildings and walk around inside, and it is actually quite interesting inside the building. I'm always fascinated that when you go in these buildings, how interesting the construction is. Here right in front of me are two windows. They open up into another room. And then there's a very well laid out door that I'll go through here in a little while. And then you've got this hole on the ground, which I suspect is either to let water out and or to let air in to fuel the fire. Again, another small window at the front and the door that I just came in.
We've come to another two sets of pueblos, one here at the bottom of the hill and one way at the top of the hill. But as you can see, we're on the east side, the sun's on the west side. So as Sean was talking about, this would not be a good side to do your photography from, as it's too shadowed and the sun is creating too much highlights in the sky. We've come to the top of the Citadel Pueblo, and the walls here are quite low, sometimes non-existent. It used to be quite a large dwelling, but you can look to the east and get a sense of how far you would have had a view, which from up here you probably could have seen any dangers coming your way. Also some nice flat areas that they would have had for grazing any animals. And there was a canyon down below that probably would have been useful for growing crops with the way that the water would run off down from the hillsides.
So this is the Wupatki Visitor Center. It has some really lovely displays in there. Lots of information, as almost all National Monument, National Park visitor centers do. We had a lovely time visiting this morning. The actual pueblos are actually behind the visitor center.
We're standing at the back of the visitor center, and you can see that this area is getting quite shadowed. The sun's going down to the west, and you can see a little bit of the tower of that building down there, and then in the shadows in the foreground, they have an amphitheater for events. Over further to the left, there's another large structure, the main Wupatki Pueblo, and it was quite large. The trail at the Wupatki Pueblo, just down from the visitor center, is mostly gravel, but quite doable. There's a little bit of a downslope going down to the smaller pueblo that's to the east. You can see lots of shadows now as we're getting late into the afternoon. I'm standing to the west of the smaller pueblo. This pueblo is pretty interesting because you can see where they have used the native rock here as some of the structure for the pueblo. So this is rock that would have been existing, and then on top they've built their structure.
Well, it's starting to get dark, and it's time for us to go look for our campsite for the night, and we'll pick this back up in the morning. Good morning.
It's about 6:30. We've been up for about half an hour getting out here. We're back at the Wupatki Pueblo by the visitor center. and we're getting all set up for sunrise. There's a few clouds around, so we might get lucky with a little bit of color in the clouds. Unfortunately, they're not lined up where we'd like them,
No, of
but
course they're not. Absolutely not lined up where we'd want them.
we're standing on the south side. Well,
Kind
yeah,
of southeast
southeast side.
side.
And we're going to do the pueblos that are to the north of us so that the sun's lighting them up as the sun rises. So we'll get a look at the compositions here.
So there's the clouds that we do have actually are quite pretty. And I think there's some good opportunities to get them and include them in the photograph, but they may not be the beautiful color we were hoping for.
There's the main pueblo down there. Multiple rooms, many doorways. In the closest area to us, the walls are quite crumbled. As the structure is higher on some of the higher ledges of the rock, those walls are still quite tall. Throughout the structure, there's some numbered items that if you get a guide from the visitor center, it will tell you some of the features you're looking at. If we look up into the sky, over here to the west, way up there, there's a moon. It's going to be too high to do anything for us, but it sure is pretty. Would be awesome if it was setting just behind us as we were doing our sunrise photo, but it's going to be a few days before it sets at the sunrise.
So I just finished taking a shot from the image behind us, and it's kind of an interesting shot because there's really nothing in it except sort of the pinky gray clouds. They're actually going fairly gray right now, but they were fairly pink here a few minutes ago. There's a nice set of boulders actually right here at the bottom, and I'm using those as my foreground. And then actually just using the fact that there's just not a lot out there except the clouds in order to kind of have a line going from the rocks through some rocks out there and then up into the clouds. It's a very straightforward shot, but with the colors of the rocks and the sky, it's really quite lovely. And here is the photo. You will notice the dominance of the rocks in the front and in the sky in the background, with really not much in the middle.
Well, just as we were getting our cameras set up on tripods and deciding on whether we were going to be using filters and all those setup options, we were listening to a few coyotes out in the distance calling to one another, so they're probably out doing the last of their nighttime or early morning hunting when some of the creatures start to come out of their burrows to forage for the morning. So I always love hearing the coyotes out in the wild. Well, I got my camera set up, trying to get a little bit low so that some of the structure is closer to the top horizon of those hills. You can see with the red hills in the background and the way the pueblo is, that they all blend together. Well, of course, that would be the case since the stone used for the pueblo is made from the stone that's used in this area. But with a little bit of post-processing editing, I maybe can get the pueblo a little bit brighter and keep the background a little bit darker. I've also put on a 2-stop graduated filter on my camera so that I can reduce the brightness of the sky. Still waiting on the sun to rise, but it's nice to get some pictures right now before you get intense sunlight and shadows on the structure. So it's nice and evenly lit. Not too much color up in those clouds, unfortunately. And the color that was visible over to our northeast is just very, very faint back there. And It's hard to get a good composition. Well, the sun's just coming up over the horizon, and you can see just the very top of the pueblo starting to light up behind me. It's a little bit uneven, so we'll have to wait for the light to get a little bit lower now. Otherwise, the picture might look a little odd with the top being highlighted and the bottom more in shadow. We're not too low relative to the horizon, so we should get light pretty quick. I've got my tripod set down quite low so I can get more of the pueblo a little bit higher relative to the ground around it and hopefully make it more prominent. Don't forget to try your camera at different heights when you're working on a subject.
We were getting a little bored waiting for the sun to come up, so we were having some fun walking shadows back and forth across the top of the pueblo.
Just for your reference, in case you'd like to know, I believe that the photography here for morning is better light than at evening. And I would either select the Wukoki or the Wupatki Pueblos, both of which are close to the visitor center. They have more interesting structures and are probably easier to line up for a nice composition. Also, if you get some really good evening clouds, then that might be fine for a picture as well. Something in the northwest or north portion would work for the angle that you're standing at. If you get clouds in the south, that's not going to be helpful because most of the areas for standing in the trails are on the south side of these structures. So hopefully those tips will be helpful if you decide to come out to the Wupatki National Monument. We are visiting the fourth pueblo. This is called Wukoki. This had about 7 or 8 rooms. Had a beautiful tall tower that's just amazing. And at one point, it still had some of the roof structure with logs. I'm not sure that's still there anymore, but it lasted quite a long time. They were very skilled builders with these pueblos.
Getting up to this one requires going up a set of stairs. And you can imagine that the path getting up here when it was active was probably not nearly as easy, so it would have been a little bit difficult to get up into the Pueblo. Karina's standing on an area called the Plaza, and she's photographing back towards the Pueblo. Notice how thick the walls are, and that this is actually a two-story building. It's kind of amazing the amount of engineering and construction skill necessary. Well, Karina, what did you think of our visit to Wupatki?
I enjoy this spot immensely. It is so interesting to be able to walk through these old pueblos and imagine how people would grow crops and graze their sheep.
Yeah, it's amazing. What impresses me so much is the construction and engineering that must have gone into this. They really had some brilliant people among them that had worked out how to build these stone buildings and make the fire work, make the roof work. It's just amazing things. So I think we should bring this video to an end. It's time to move on. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up.
And if you'd like to see more of our videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far.
And as always, if you want to know when we release a video, hit that little bell button.
We enjoy your questions, comments, thoughts, and ideas. If you have anything you'd like to share with us or just want to say hello, you can put it in the comments section down below and we'll respond as soon as we can.
And until next time, bye for now.
Bye for now.